Good morning, Minister, and brothers and sisters. I learned from Brother Ang. Yeah. Liu Woon Teck本嚟使嚟隨話. Right. Now I want to talk about public trust. We take for granted that a public trust is everywhere in Singapore, right? Actually, we are very fortunate that in Singapore, our public institutions and our public trust are still very high. But if you look at the global survey, I was just looking at the Edelman Trust Barometer. Okay, in many places outside Singapore, I'm sad to say that people don't believe in the public institutions, including NGO. Okay. It could be due to fake news, it could be due to leaders, but there are many reasons to this. And I hope that one day this will not happen to Singapore. And I just want to borrow what Minister K. Shanmugam said on Monday, when he actually hijacked the opening of the CG. But he talked about something that is very important, and that is if we don't talk openly about the orderly 4GL, all of you won't be here to talk about governance. All right? And I'm not sure whether you look at this Charity Act amendments. Right? One of the things is protecting the charities. The importance for charities to have good leaders, people with integrity, so that we still continue to uphold public trust, because it's a very, very fragile asset that can be destroyed easily, right? And I thought they have been very nice to give this to you, and I thought this piece of paper is important to go through, right? The second thing I want to say here is, before I go into the fundraising, today what we are facing is the smart device has enabled us to do fundraising without a license and without COC knowing it, right? Not sure how many of you has received SMS messages. Somebody's father in a hospital, no money to do operation, all right, this is my bank account, use PayLah, Pay Now, $1 is enough, pop. Things like this are actually beyond the regulator. And this actually had, in many ways, threatened public trust. And in my view, the charity sectors need to think about tripartism. What do I mean by tripartism? We cannot rely on the regulator. Okay? We need to rely on the regulator, all of you here, the charities, plus the donors. We have to work together to uphold public trust. And I'm glad that the COC has started a campaign to engage the donors, to ask, to question, to verify before they give. And the more that we have more smart and intelligent donors working alongside with charities, and the more that we have vigilant donors and charities updating the COC, some of these schemes that are going on, that's beyond surveillance today because of the smart devices, the more we can uphold and protect public trust. And I think, I'm not speaking from the government, I think as an ordinary citizen, I see the importance of all of us working together, okay, to uphold public trust. And we cannot afford today to have a situation where fake news or anything erode our institutions, right? Now, methods of fundraising. Before I go into all these methods of fundraising, I'm not here to bog down with which one is good, which one is bad. I would like to say, in fact, I have been looking high and low for the how, right? And I'm glad that Brother Ang is going to do this, right? On parents, right? How do you go about creating the visibility to do your fundraising? Now, one of the key things that I also found is for you to look at National Arts Council. National Arts Council, together with the LaSalle College, has actually come up with a checklist on how you should go about doing fundraising. And I was reading that checklist last night, and I find that it is very useful. Right? It is not about raise a lot of money. It's about going through this parent, right? But they give you guidelines on how to do it, and they also give you a lot of resources to help you start to think about what is more suitable for you. Okay? Now, traditional fundraising is still the mainstay for the largest charities and also the mid-sized charities, but I also noticed that this is difficult for the smaller charities because these are resource intensive. But one of the observations I will make for the large charities is the way they do fundraising is they rely on a few prominent people, patrons, right? And like what the minister has said, these prominent people, they have their circles, right, of friends, right? And some of these people that we know tell me every year the same person come and ask for charities. Buay tahan ah. Business are not doing good, right? So this channel of using prominent people, patrons to raise fund has its limitation. And I don't think it is going to be sustainable, right? And we need to look at this in a wider context. If you use media, I'm not sure these days, do our younger people stay at home at 7 o'clock p.m. to watch all these charities? Harder, right? The viewerships, you know, are declining, right? And seriously, when you have too many of this, after a while, people don't just pick up the phone and dial, right? So I think from a traditional fundraising base, there's a need to look at beyond this traditional fundraising, to use social media, and to look at using third-party fundraisers, maybe perhaps professional fundraisers, and also to look at collaboration among the smaller charities, right? Now I'm going to give you some examples, but before I do that, I will go one at a time. On these third-party fundraisers, there are pitfalls. You got to understand why. Sometimes in a third-party fundraisers, you've got commercial for-profit organization using your platform to do fundraising. All right. For example, someone that sells beauty products, they come to you and say, anyone that buy my beauty products, 30% of my sales proceeds will go to you. Do you take it? I think you've got to start to answer and think about what is your objective and is there a fit, right? So these are things that I think we need to think about on using third-party fundraisers. And bear in mind that in using third-party fundraisers, you do need to have a protocol with them to make sure that there is a written contractual arrangement, what they can do, what they cannot do. You also need to remember that there is a duty for you, right, to disclose, all right, how you're going to use the donations, the duty to the owners, the transparency, accountability, and accuracy of the information. And I think you do need to actually be vigilant to look at the conduct of these third-party fundraisers, okay? And always remember there is this guideline, Charities Fundraising Appeals for Local and Foreign Charitable Purpose Regulations 2012. This is going to be updated, and I think all of you need to be following through the news on the revision. I'm giving some examples of some of our charities that are doing these third-party fundraisers. If you go to the website of Singapore Cancer Society, you know that they have many third-party fundraisers. And if you manage it well, control it well, there is proper engagement, there's understanding, there's proper screening of the third-party fundraisers. I think that is a good avenue. And for smaller charities, this can be something that you think about because you don't have to use a lot of resources. If your purpose is clear and you know what you need, right? And you know which are the third-party organizations that had a fit, this could be a good fundraising pathway for you to explore. Now then we ask another question. What if people come and say, yeah, I will help you raise money. Don't worry, okay? But I'm going to give cars, free air tickets, spa treatment. Do we need to do fundraising going through this path? And I think there's a lot of debate about this. Personally, I find that for charity fundraising appeal, it has to come from the heart. And if we have to give inducement to raise the dollar, it just dilutes the altruism, the spirit of giving. And I think as a whole ecosystem, we must take a position. And I hope that all of you will agree that we should not be giving inducements, right, to get people to give. And in the long-term good of the charity sectors, okay, I think all of us have to agree to work together on a tripartisan model, the regulator, all of you, teaching the owners, the donors, right, teaching the donors, what is that good? What is a good? How are you using the money? Right? And I think when we are able to do this, we will become a more caring, inclusive society. Now, collaboration is easy to say, okay, but very hard to do. Why? There are some suggestions that smaller charities must come together, right, and have a shared resources, but we notice that this is not a model that we see significant results. There are many factors to that. I'll leave it to another day to explain, but I think what is key in a collaboration is, and lay down some foundations, you need to focus on the beneficiaries. That's the purpose. You've got to understand why you're coming together, what is the purpose of collaborating, what is the desired social outcome you want to achieve. That has to be defined. The needs of the beneficiary has to be defined clearly. A lot of you need to also think about the financial implications, how to share the cost, and whether coming together, sharing resources, doing fundraising, okay, is suitable for you. Right? And I think it is not just leaving to the leader. Each one of you have to do your homework, and each one of you have to agree on a sharing model that makes sense. Okay? And I think one of the key problems we face in a collaboration is there will always be a dominant leader, and there will be many silent participants. But this is not going to be healthy in a collaborative model. We need to have a more participative, active engagement among all the key smaller charities coming together. You just can't have a dominant leader that leads all the way, all right? Understanding and demonstrating social impact, I talk about this. And again, the key thing, the importance of trust. And I cannot emphasize that these valuable assets that we have in Singapore today, a lot of us take for granted it will be there. But actually it is not. Right? If you look at the US institutions, and it's very worrying when you see all the key institutions are eroded. This public trust are eroded. We're not here to talk about politics, but I'm learning from the overseas, our neighbor countries, you see how that can be eroded easily, right? Now, another example I thought is useful to share is this childhood trust in UK. They have this summer giving programs, and they pull together, and this is actually in London, where they do fundraising to help the children staying in London who are living in the poverty. And what they do is to help all these smaller charities who is giving the care to all these poverty children band together, do their individual fundraising, and this trust actually match dollar for dollar. And over a period of time, they have been very successful to raise sufficient money to help many children living in poverty in London. Something that I think our smaller charities can think about, and I'm sure you can get many corporates who are prepared to do the one-to-one dollar matching to help you start something small, right? Again, I'm hoping to address the how and give our fellow brothers and sisters here some ideas, what are the new innovative way of doing fundraising. Online fundraising, those numbers that we are seeing is only unique to these 4 platforms, but what we cannot track is all this individual informal fundraising that is going on. And that's the reason why you will notice that the Charities Act now make it very clear, as long as you're fundraising, you are subject to regulations and you are subject to those duty of care to tell the donors how the money are used. Right? And I think it is in the interest of all of us to safeguard public trust when we see a lot of this online fundraising, and we need to question a little bit more how real, right? And you know, in the world outside Singapore, a lot of people think that Singaporeans are very caring, have a good heart, but also very gullible, right? I'm not sure whether you watched the Climb Watch last Monday, where the Chileans came here and you know, steal, right? And that's true. And you will notice that many foreign organizations are using Singapore to do fundraising to help people outside. In my own thinking is, if we can't even help so many fellow Singaporeans enough, why are we helping outside, right? And I think I will always feel that in the charity sectors, we should always focus on Singaporean first, right? And if we can, our ability allow us to do that, then we go and help outside people. Right? Now, there's a code of practice for this online charitable fundraising, which I think is important, and I hope that we take this very seriously and we look at how to uphold public trust by following all these principles. And these are guidelines that are useful to engage our donors, right? It covers these key principles of legitimacy of appeals, maintenance of proper donation records, and transparency of the fundraise. Some charities tell me, because of resources, I don't have the ability to hire people to maintain proper donation records. I cannot agree with that statement, because maintaining proper donation records actually do not need a lot of people, and actually do not need accounting firm like us to come in and help you maintain proper records. If you have to do that, something is very wrong, right? I will ask you one question. How do you maintain your personal bank statements, credit card statements, and your bank account? You rely on your wife, your children, or accounting firm? No, you look after yourself, right? Right? So if you can answer the question, I'm going to tell you, maintaining proper records is not that hard. You don't need consultants, right? And you don't need sophisticated accounting softwares, right? I think we do need to look at this and make an effort to put our house in order. Okay? You'll notice I talk a lot about online fundraising, because I think in another next 2 to 3 years, this is going to be the trend. There are many issues that are still not resolved, like confidentiality of the donor's information, how we are going to make sure that we comply with PDPA, and how we should be working together. And I think we should not fear online fundraising. We should embrace it. and we adjust and learn from past mistakes, right? And become wiser, and we improve the code of practice as we take on this journey. But vigilance is important. It's not about the methods of online fundraising, it's about how collectively all of us come up together to uphold public trust. Okay? Now, again, this is the MVPC Corporate Giving Survey in 2012. Company had little or no confidence that fundraising proceeds will be put to good use. All right? And remember today with social media, and social media cannot erase all the bad news. All right? If it happened, it happened. Right? If you look at the US, wherever the president said something, the social media will pick it up and say, this is what he said 3 days ago, 3 months ago, this is what they said now, inconsistency and all those things. So we are living in a world of digital economy. Everything that you say, everything you do are going to be used one day or another because we leave a lot of digital footprint. And when you are not consistent, again, you erode public trust. Okay? Duty to donors. I want to cover this a little bit, and I'm sure Brother Ang will do that again in the afternoon. I think we have to be very careful with making sure that the information that we provide to the donors are accurate, not overselling, and definitely cannot be misleading. Disclosure of organization name and intended use of the fund, this has to be clearly ironed out. Donors' information must be kept confidential, and there should be proper control and safeguard for accountability. I think this is important because if we cannot do that, right, willingly and spend time to think about this, it's not about how much money you raise because you will not be able to sustain and carry on. Okay? There are some rules about how you should be spending the money, how much can goes to the expenses. I'm not going to label this. I think a lot of you already know this. Okay? Sustainable fundraising. I think what is important that and to enable caring, thriving charities is we look at how we can sustain the fundraising effort. Because if it is every year you go around doing TV shows and all those, not only we use a lot of resources, it's not efficient. Right? So I think in this area, and this is also a client of ours, Catherine Loh said that the challenge of charities is to run it with a business mindset, pursuing a sustainable approach with regard to fundraising, while at the same time with efficiency and good governance. A lot of us are increasingly thinking, how can we, right, using the social enterprise platform, right, to do a business, generate profits, and go back and give. There are many models, like even our hawker centers, they could be run by social enterprise, so that we plow back the profits to help keep the food costs low. So some of these things I think is very good because it built into the charity governance system resilience, right? And I think we should continue to do that. The education sector, the art sector has a lot of these endowment funds so that the income generated from the investments are put to good use. Okay? And maybe we should explore more of this, right, beyond the education and the art sectors. Social credit is something that is very new, but to give you a very good example how it is being used in Singapore, all of you got a $500 SkillsFuture credit, right? How many of you have used it already? Or didn't know that you have a $500? You can use the $500 to choose what you want to do, right? Yeah. Yes, of course, there's some abuse from the service provider point of view, but I think that's a good way to look at how you can open up more options, right, for the charity sectors to look at social credit. It can be a good fundraising currency for the future. And I want to end by saying that charity comes from the heart. Okay? The United Way is a charity foundation, not a foundation, it's a charity organization that has lasted more than 125 years. The reason why they have lasted more than 125 years is they are keeping with times. They recognize that the donor's profile has changed. People are going to digital media, all right? And they are investing in resources to understand the donor's behavior better, so that they can better match the donor's preference to those charitable causes that make sense to them, right? And if we take on this approach, assuming that each one of you now have, using technology, have a way to understand each of your donors, what they prefer, what they want to champion, right? Is it the animal cause or art cause or education cause or poverty cause, whatever, it doesn't matter. But at least you know the profile of these donors and continue to engage them, right? And they believe that you are doing good for those causes they believe in. Then what is going to happen? We will have a very interesting, sustainable fundraising pathway that will enable, right, the charities to do whatever they set out to do. And I think these are things that we can learn, and I'm sure going forward with this concept of tripartism, the regulators, charities like you, and we have discerning donors coming together to create a caring, inclusive society for all causes, right? We can be a beacon and a leading example to the world how we uphold public trust in our institutions. We cannot leave it to just the government or the charities. We must continue to engage the donors, to get them to ask, to verify before they give. Right? Thank you very much.